Hey guys, Caleb here with DSLR Video Shooter, and today we're taking a look at the brand new Aputure Mini20 light kit. Recently, Aputure sent me their new Mini20 light kit. This involves 3 fresnel focusable lights that I'm really stoked about. Now the whole kit costs $720. That's what we're reviewing today. They will, at least I've heard, that there will be lights individually available for purchase. So if you don't want the whole kit, you'll be able to select each light individually. So if you get the kit, here's what you will find in the really nice bag from Aputure. You will find 3 lights, 2 Mini20Ds, and the D stands for daylight, and a single 20C, the C standing for color. You also find a ton of different options for power, including an AC power supply and cord, a USB power cable, and a D-tap cable. You'll also find a Sony F plate for batteries, a Sony F battery, and a Sony F charger for each of the lights. You also find a clamp for each light, a ball head for each light, little clips for attaching filters to each light, 10 CTO filters for converting to tungsten, a CTO little color gel that you can slide into the front of the light, and that's it. It comes with a ton of different stuff. It's amazing how much comes with these lights considering the cost. So now let's go over the lights individually. I'm going to start with the 20C, so the bicolor light, and to power it I'm going to use one of the clamps that comes with the kit and the battery plate, which also has a D-tap cable. I'm going to plug it in here, and what's awesome about this is that this little battery clamp actually has a little battery indicator. So if I turn the light on, we can see here that I'm halfway down on my battery. On the back of the light, we'll start there. You will see we have our power input, which is 3-pin mini XLR. It's a great little connector. And you'll see we can go from 5 to 18 volts to power this light. So you can use USB batteries to get this thing up and running, or any of the other power options that come with the light. The real exciting feature with this light is this giant knob on the back here, which as I turn it, you'll see the little indicator change on the bottom there, and we can change the beam angle of this light. So let me go ahead, fire it up, and we'll turn it all the way to spot mode. So there you can see nice spotty light, and I'm going to widen the beam angle all the way out, and now we have a nice wide beam angle. So that's what this knob on the back does. Obviously there is a power button right next to it to turn the light on and off. If we flip it around to the side, this is where we can change all of our settings. So there's a knob here. Right now it is set to brightness, and you can turn it down like so, or turn it up to 100%. And if you press this button in, get that nice little click, and now we're in color mode, and the same dial will let us change our color temperature between 3200 and 6500. Moving to the front of the light here, we have a really nice set of barn doors. They're metal, and we can rotate it, so you can do a nice cut like this and go ahead and rotate barn doors. Really awesome. So I'm going to turn on the light right behind me and grab the barn doors and start cutting the light, and you can see that you can get a nice, really nice cut with these lights, which I love. I found that at the widest field of view, that's where you get the best cutting. If you go into spot mode, it doesn't really cut nearly as nicely. So that's just something to keep in mind, but it's awesome. I mean, look at that beam angle. We can, have some fun with that. It's really slick, and I haven't really found as many lights that can do this as well as these do. So you can get a nice spot, or open it up and pretty much fill the entire backdrop. I'm probably 8 feet from my backdrop right now. So that is an overview of the color. The daylight model is exactly the same, with exception to not having this color bar on the side of the light. It just has the brightness. Next up is output and color. Output on these is pretty good. You will see a significant output drop on the color model. On screen, I will show the lux information. I did test these lights myself at the same distances as Aputure did, and they were pretty close. So those numbers seem to be pretty true. But the color model, so the bicolor model, is easily less than half the output of the daylight model, even at its brightest. So What I found is at 5,000 Kelvin on the bicolor model, you're going to get the most output, but it's not really going to come close to the brightness of the daylight model. So you need to keep that in mind, especially when you go to either end of the bicolor model, you'll really see some light loss. So all in all, output is really good for the size of this light. I did notice some funky stuff when it comes to color. First and foremost, there's the elephant in the room, and that's the color temperature of the daylight models. They're 7,500 Kelvin, which is really blue. So I wish it was 5,600 or 55 or even 6,000 would have been nice. And the solution to that is included with the lights is these little orange CTO little cards here, and they slide into the front of the light like so, and that will take those 7,500 lights and convert them closer to, I believe, 5,500 Kelvin. The problem with that is over time, I have noticed that these little cards here begin to bleach. The light actually like bleaches the center so that it no longer works. The light right behind me looks blue in my background because I'm using one of these, and in the center it's no longer orange. So you're going to need to get some CTO gels to correct these lights if you're going to be doing a completely daylight setup. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing I noticed, and you might be able to tell on my background, especially if I go into spot mode, is that there's a little bit of what I call color fringing on the edges of the light. So if we do something like that, you might start to notice right in this area, you're going to see a color difference. So it's not going to be the same color as the center of the light output. I only noticed this on the daylight model. The bicolor model didn't seem to have as much of an issue, but there is kind of a yellowy green going on the edge of the light. It's more pronounced in spot mode, and you're not going to notice it a lot unless you shoot against something white, is usually when I saw it, but you kind of see it on the edges there. It also depends on the angle of the light. But something to keep in mind is that they're not, exactly the same color temperature throughout the entire edges of the light. Also in the color department, we have really good specs for these when it comes to the center of the actual light. So on the daylight models, we have a 97 CRI and TLCI and 96 on the color or the bicolor model. When it comes to build quality, these lights are really interesting. I commend Aputure for giving us such a budget option, and you can tell where Aputure has tried to save a little bit of money and then pass those savings on to us. So having the battery unit external, it would have been nice to have it built on. The color temperatures being kind of interesting. All this stuff I think is to save money and then pass that on to us. If you want the end-all light that is absolutely perfect, these might not be the best option. While we're talking about build quality, we need to talk about the fans on these things. I have the light right behind me that I've been using for my backgrounds on my videos turned all the way up on the brightness, and the fan is running. These things kick on and off as they see fit. There's no way to control the fan speed or to keep them turned on or turn them completely off. And they are fairly noisy. And I'll turn the light back on here. There it is, turned right back on. So this isn't perfect. If you're going to be using the lights on a background, you really won't notice as much of an issue with that. But I have noticed in my videos, if you listen carefully, you'll hear them, especially since I have one right behind me here. Just something to keep in mind, and you can't really control it. So with that said, let's talk about how I've been using these and why I really like them. I actually have another one we've been using it for this whole video right above this second camera shot, and it's been hitting this light right here. And this just goes to show one area where these lights are awesome. I have found these lights are amazing for focusing and kind of sculpting your image when it comes to lighting. So this shot normally would be just fine, but I wanted to add just a little more interest to this light over here, and I can do that with one of these 20D lights. I have it mounted above the shot right here, and because of the barn doors and being able to shoot a spot down on this light right here, I'm not getting the light spilling onto myself or anywhere else. It's just hitting this light. So now let's go ahead and light with these. I'm going to tear up this set here. We're going to try to use these as a key light. I'm probably going to need to use 2 of them and do several other setups. All right, here is setup number 1. What I've set up is 2 of the Mini-20s, the daylight versions, in a umbrella setup right here for my key light. Now these lights I don't really consider made for something like this. They totally obviously will give you a key light with some diffusion, but it's really not their strong point. And I'm using the 2 daylights because they're the brightest, and I'm using them without any kind of color changes. So we're right now at full 7500 Kelvin. I've set my camera's white balance to match that. And then for the background, I'm using the color light right behind me. You can see it right here. And with this, I can mess with the color a little bit. So right now it's set to as cool as it will go, kind of to match the other lights, but I could warm it up if I wanted something more like that. And here we have another setup. This one's pretty dramatic, not something I would always use, but we have both of the 20Ds lighting the background in kind of an Professor X movie interview kind of background. And then I have for a kicker and hair light, the 20C set to tungsten. Or 3200 Kelvin. So that's kind of giving me this warmer color. I could easily change it to something a little cooler like this, and now you have a cooler kicker hair light. It's a little intense. I would need to knock that down a little bit, even though it's currently set at its lowest setting. And now we'll do one final setup using some gels. So for this setup, I'm using all 3 lights again. The 20 color or 20C is doing the same thing as it was in the last one, giving me a little bit of a kicker. Both of the 20Ds are pointed at the background. One is set to the widest setting for the Fresnel with a blue gel. That's kind of lighting everything blue. And then the other one is at a spot with kind of a purple or pink gel. You can see it's giving a nice little spot. And I like to do this all the time. I'll take 2 colors that look good together, one over the entire background, and then one a little more of a soft kind of spot in the center or off to one side. And we can also push them at the corners to get a different look completely. And once again, exact same setup. The only difference is I took the 2 lights that have gels on them and pointed them at opposite corners. This one and yeah. So in closing, I think the Mini-20 lights are the perfect everything but the key light lights. You can definitely use them as a key like we saw earlier, but they are perfect for sculpting and lighting pretty much anything in the background or foreground of your scene. I have loved using these for backgrounds primarily, but also things where I just need a little bit of light right here and this much of it and this color of it and cut this stuff out. It's so amazing how well these work for really anything. So these are going to be the perfect supporting lights for any other lights that you currently have. If you are getting started, these might be a great way to go and do that first setup we looked at, and then down the road you can upgrade to a larger key light and all these puppies become the perfect supporting lights. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. They're noisy. You have to have power external. They're not built amazingly. The color temperatures are kind of interesting, but the output, the focusability, and being able to cut and craft your light is amazing on these. So that is going to do it for this video. Check the description if you want to pick up a kit of these lights, and of course let me know in the comments if you have any questions at all. Otherwise, you can watch fresh videos here at DSLR Video Shooter every single Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.